If only they knew why she always backs her baby upside down. What happened to her, I wouldn't wish on my worst enemy, not even a stray dog wandering the parched earth. The day it all shattered began not with a bang, but with the soft, insidious rustle of fabric as my husband, Jide, packed his bag. It was a morning like any other in our village, the sun already searing the red earth, the scent of wood smoke mingling with the promise of rain. But this morning, the air in our small, mud-brick home was thick with an unspoken finality. He didn't speak. He didn't need to. His silence was a deafening roar, a betrayal that echoed the one etched on his face. "I am leaving you, Amara," he had said the night before, his voice flat, devoid of the warmth that had once been my world. For another. Another woman, younger, unburdened by the years of struggle, the droughts, the hungry nights. A woman who, he implied, could give him what I, Amara, could not, a son. The words had been a physical blow, a fist to my gut, leaving me gasping for air in the oppressive heat of our hut. I had given him 2 daughters, radiant as the morning sun, but in his eyes, in the eyes of our village, they were not enough. My womb, once a source of pride, was now a barren field in his estimation. The village, a collection of huts nestled under the vast African sky, thrived on the currents of gossip and tradition. Reputation was everything. A woman without a male heir, a woman discarded, was a leaf blown away by the wind, destined to wither and crumble. And I, Amara, once respected, now felt myself shriveling under the collective gaze. When Jide left, he didn't just take his clothes, he took my standing, my identity, the very ground beneath my feet. The elders, the women I had shared laughter and sorrows with, now looked at me with a mixture of pity and veiled judgment. I saw it in their eyes as they averted their gaze, heard it in the sudden lulls in conversation when I approached. The market, once a vibrant tapestry of sounds and smells, became a gauntlet of whispers. She was cursed, some would murmur, too proud. Others, more charitable, would offer their condolences, but their eyes held the gleam of curiosity, dissecting my pain as if it were a rare specimen. The sting of betrayal from Jide was a gaping wound, but the slow, agonizing erosion of my dignity by my own community was a poison seeping into my very bones. I retreated into myself, into the suffocating solitude of my hut. The laughter of my daughters, my precious Nala and Zola, seemed to bounce off the walls, unable to penetrate the thick veil of despair that enveloped me. I watched them play, their innocence a stark contrast to the darkness within me. How could I protect them from the shame that now clung to our family name? How could I teach them resilience when I felt so utterly broken? The days blurred into weeks, marked only by the relentless sun and the growing emptiness in my soul. Sleep offered no escape, my dreams were haunted by Jide's dismissive gaze, by the mocking laughter of the villagers. Hunger gnawed at me, but the thought of food was repugnant. I was a ghost, wandering through my own life, a shadow of the woman I once was. The once familiar sounds of the village, the rhythmic pounding of millet, the distant bleating of goats, the melodic calls of the children, now felt alien, a vibrant symphony from which I was forever excluded. Loneliness, a cold, insidious serpent, coiled around my heart, squeezing the life out of me, whispering insidious doubts. You are nothing. You are alone. You deserve this. One sweltering afternoon, Nala, my eldest, came to me, her small hand clutching a withered flower. Her eyes, usually so bright, were clouded with worry. "Mama," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "why don't you sing anymore?" Her question, simple and innocent, pierced through the layers of my self-pity. It was a tiny crack in the formidable wall I had built around myself. I looked at her, truly looked at her, and saw not just a child, but a reflection of my own despair. My daughters. My reason. How could I let my sorrow consume me when they needed me, when they needed a mother who could stand tall, even when her world had crumbled? The flower, dry and brittle, reminded me of my own fragility. But within its delicate petals, there was still the memory of life, the promise of renewal. That night, a strange, almost imperceptible shift occurred within me. It wasn't a sudden burst of strength, but a tiny flicker, a hesitant spark in the desolate landscape of my soul. I remembered my grandmother, a woman whose life had been a testament to enduring strength. She had faced hardships I could only imagine, yet she had always found a way to stand tall, to nurture life even in the harshest of seasons. Her spirit, her unwavering belief in the power of resilience, whispered to me from the depths of my memory. It was a faint echo, but it was enough. The next morning, I rose with a newfound, fragile resolve. I would not let Jide, or the village, define me. I would not let my life be a monument to my pain. I would, somehow, find my way back. My journey began with small, almost imperceptible steps. I started tending my small patch of cassava again, feeling the soil beneath my fingers, a tangible connection to the earth, to life. The rhythm of the work, the sweat on my brow, was a cleansing balm. I began to speak to my daughters more, to truly listen to their innocent chatter, finding solace in their unyielding love. One day, a traveling merchant, a kind-faced woman named Aisha, stopped by my hut, seeking shelter from a sudden downpour. We spoke for hours, sharing stories, and in her eyes, I found no judgment, only understanding. She spoke of her own struggles, of the times she had felt lost and alone. Her words were a lifeline, pulling me from the murky depths of my isolation. She saw me not as a discarded wife, but as Amara, a woman of resilience, a mother striving to protect her children. She told me of a distant village where women thrived, where their worth was measured not by the number of sons they bore, but by the strength of their spirit, by their contributions to the community. Her words, like seeds, began to sprout hope in my barren heart. The turning point, the moment of revelation, came months later, not from an external event, but from within. It was a quiet, unassuming afternoon. I was preparing a meal, my daughters playing outside, their laughter a sweet melody. As I knelt to grind the millet, a sudden memory surfaced, sharp and clear. Jide, years ago, when we were first married, had spoken of a prophecy he had heard as a child. A very specific, very rare, and almost unheard of prophecy from an obscure, forgotten sect of his family. It spoke of a firstborn son, born under a specific alignment of stars, who would bring immense prosperity to their lineage. But the prophecy also carried a dark caveat: if that son was born of a woman who had previously borne daughters, the prosperity would be short-lived, replaced by a curse that would be passed down through generations. A curse so potent it could render all subsequent births stillborn or sickly, forever blighting the family line. At the time, I had dismissed it as old wives' tales, a relic of superstitions that had no place in our modern world. But now, it resonated with a chilling clarity. Jide, a man deeply rooted in tradition and driven by a desperate desire for a prosperous future for his family, had been consumed by this forgotten prophecy. His father, a man obsessed with lineage and prosperity, had instilled in him a fear of anything that might derail their family's future. He believed, truly believed, that my daughters, while cherished, were a harbinger of this curse, a barrier to the prosperity he so desperately craved for a son. He had seen me, not as Amara, his wife, but as a vessel, and one that, in his twisted interpretation of the prophecy, was flawed. His leaving was not an act of malice, not born of a lack of love, but of a profound, misguided fear. He believed, in his desperate heart, that by leaving me and finding a new wife, one who had not yet borne daughters, he was safeguarding his future lineage from this perceived curse. He believed he was protecting his family, albeit through a heartbreaking act of abandonment. He was a prisoner of his own fear, a victim of an ancient, insidious myth. The revelation hit me with the force of a physical blow, not of anger, but of profound sadness. It wasn't about my inadequacy, it was about his desperation, his blind adherence to a belief that had consumed him. It was then, and only then, that I understood the true depth of his fear. And in that understanding, something shifted within me. The bitterness, the resentment that had festered within my heart, began to dissipate, replaced by a quiet, aching compassion. He was not a villain, but a flawed man, trapped by a belief system that dictated his every move. And then, the second, even more profound revelation arrived. It was weeks later, after I had begun to truly heal, to find my footing in this new, solitary life. My youngest daughter, Zola, fell ill. A fever raged through her small body, and her breath came in ragged gasps. The village healer, a wise old woman named Mama Neka, came to our hut. She examined Zola, her face grim. "This is not merely a fever, Amara," she said, her voice low. "This is the upside-down sickness, a spirit fever that seeks to steal the very breath from a child." My heart pounded in my chest. "Is there anything I can do?" I pleaded, tears streaming down my face. Mama Neka looked at me, her eyes filled with a deep, ancient knowledge. "There is an old way," she whispered, "a ritual of protection for the upside-down sickness. You must carry her, always, with her head facing downwards, against your back. It confuses the spirit, makes it believe the child is already falling, already lost, and so it does not bother to claim her." It sounded absurd, illogical, a superstition born of desperation. But I was desperate. I would have done anything. And so, I began carrying Zola, my precious child, not on my back in the traditional way, but upside down, her small head resting near my lower back, her little legs dangling over my shoulder. It was awkward, cumbersome, and drew immediate, bewildered stares from the villagers. They whispered. They pointed. "Look at Amara," they muttered, "she has truly lost her mind. Carrying her baby upside down." Their judgment, once a source of unbearable pain, now seemed distant, irrelevant. All that mattered was Zola, her fragile life, her every labored breath. Day and night, I carried her like that, through the village, to the well, to the market. The physical strain was immense, my back aching, my shoulders screaming in protest. But each time I felt her small, warm body against mine, a surge of fierce, primal love flowed through me, eclipsing all discomfort. And slowly, miraculously, Zola began to recover. The fever receded, her breathing eased, and the light returned to her eyes. The villagers, however, continued to stare, continued to whisper. They saw the strange ritual, the madness of Amara. They didn't see the reason, the desperate act of a mother fighting for her child's life. They didn't see the prophecy that had driven Jide away, the ancient sickness that threatened to steal my child. If only they knew why she always backs her baby upside down. If only they understood that what seemed like madness was, in fact, an act of profound love and a mother's fierce defiance against an unseen enemy. In the end, I found my strength not in battling Jide, not in confronting the village, but in nurturing my daughters, in reclaiming my own worth. I learned that true love wasn't about possessing someone, but about understanding their pain, even if that pain led them away from you. I learned that forgiveness wasn't for the other person, but for myself, a release from the shackles of bitterness. And I learned that resilience wasn't about avoiding the storm, but about learning to dance in the rain, about finding purpose even when everything around you feels upside down. I still carry Zola on my back, sometimes the traditional way, sometimes, when the memory of that fear grips me, still instinctively the upside-down way. The villagers still talk, but their whispers no longer sting. I am Amara, a woman who has walked through fire and emerged, not unscathed, but stronger, wiser, and more deeply connected to the unwavering power of a mother's love. My daughters are my legacy, my strength, and the very reason I stand here today, unbroken. And I am whole.